What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Blackwater Podcast. Today is January the 19th, 2021, and we are one day away from having to call Sleepy Joe Biden the President of the United States. Kind of a sad subject, but that's neither here nor there because we talk about hunting on this podcast, and so politics is, we can save that for another day. Today's episode was supposed to be the axis deer episode, but I'm going to let you guys in on a little bit of information. I posted that, had a bunch of questions come in. I debated real hard back and forth on it, and I'm going to be real honest with you guys. The amount of hate that came in through the private messaging of our Facebook inbox about, with comments such as, if you think you're the king of axis deer, explain this, or if you know so much about axis deer, tell us why they do this. And I mean, there was some really good positive stuff coming through on there, but there was just so much negative stuff coming through there that I just debated real hard about it and talked to the guys, and I'm just not going to. Basically what it boils down to is the amount of scrutiny for doing a podcast on that coming from other people that have opinion on axis deer is just not worth it for the 150 views that this podcast will get, maybe. So with that being said, if you have questions about axis deer that you would like my opinion on, or like for me to give you whatever knowledge or info I have about that subject, just shoot us a PM, drop us a link on Instagram or on our email account, which is bwgsinfo@gmail.com. I'll be happy to share whatever knowledge I have on you. They still are my favorite species. I've hunted them and studied them for 20 years. I shot my first axis deer, I believe, in 1996. And just they're my favorite. They're my favorite species that we have to hunt and work with here in the state of Texas. And I feel like I do have a lot of knowledge on them and have been very successful with the axis deer as a whole, from studying them to learning how they grow and develop, to hunting them during certain seasons and into the rut, and what they eat and what they don't like, and have just had a lot of fun gathering information on axis deer. But, there's a lot of hate out there. So for me, it's just easier for me to share whatever info I have with friends or people that really want to know, and keep from putting that out in a public forum that just results in me getting bashed and getting in arguments and stuff like that. So basically, not worth it for me on that subject. I don't have the Rona. I just choked a little bit. But so that will transition into this episode 16 being labeled the difference between outfitters, guides, landowners, and brokers, which is a widely discussed subject in social media and in the hunting world. And we will get into that shortly because there is a lot to talk about on that. But first and foremost, this episode of the Blackwater Podcast is brought to you by Gator Outdoors. Outfitting the working class. Gator Outdoors, you guys can check them out at GatorOutdoors.com. I just hunted with the owner of Gator Outdoors. He came down to Texas from Iowa last week with a couple of his buddies, Eli and Keaton, who have hunted with me in the past with predators. They brought along Wade Borman this time, who is the owner of Gator Outdoors, and he was an awesome dude. A lot of fun to have in camp. Funny guy, hardworking guy. Serious, took his hunting serious. You'll have to ask him about some of his misfires, but at the end of the day, Wade took home two beautiful animals, one nice mouflon, one nice ibex. He took them, or hybrid ibex, I should say. He took them both back to Iowa with him, and they will look awesome in the office of Gator Outdoors. At Gator Outdoors, they have branded apparel. They brand a lot of their own apparel. They work closely, I guess you could say, collaborate with other companies, a lot of large brands that you already know. They, attach their logo and name to. They also sell other products, and they sell everything at a very reasonable price. Get a big presence on and following on Instagram. The guys do a really good job, and it's nice to meet people in the industry that are passionate about hunting, care about our industry, and put the right foot forward to make it a better place for all of us. So if you get a chance, head on over to GatorOutdoors.com. If you're one of the 150 people that are listening to this, and pick you up a t-shirt. A lot of cool t-shirts they got rocking over there, and you get stuff like this hoodie, which is great. They got stuff for guys and girls, and just a cool place to shop at a good price and support another local small business in our hunting industry. So, jumping into the subject of outfitters, guides, landowners, and brokers. What's the difference? You see this on Facebook all the time about, I don't want to hunt with anybody except for a landowner. Outfitters are scam artists. Brokers are scam artists. Guides make all the money. Outfitters make all the money. If you're not hunting with the landowner, then you're going to end up getting screwed. A lot of that stuff when it comes to hunting in Texas. And it's actually a pretty simple concept. It can get in depth, but it's actually a pretty simple concept. You really don't hear about this if you think about it. If you stop and think about this for a second, you really don't hear about this in Western states much, right? Because there's a lot of BLM land. There's a lot of public hunting ground out there. And there's plenty of those hunts that are outfitted or guided. I mean, you can go online, you can go to gohunt.com and get a membership there and start looking at hunts that you can take all across the U.S. And you'll find that a lot of the hunts are on public land and they're guided, whether it's a horseback situation or drop camp or whatever it is. A lot of it is guided and it's on public land. So, I mean, in all reality, the taxpayers are the landowners there. So, I mean, I guess if your guide is paying taxes that you're quote unquote hunting with a landowner, but it's not like he owns that land and yet you're still willing to spend your money to go hunting with him. In Texas, I understand it's slightly different because Texas is upper 90% privately owned when it comes to our hunting grounds. However, you're in the same situation in Texas, is that a lot of that ground that you go on, you're going with a guide to hunt because there's not a lot of landowners per se that are running the hunts. There is in certain situations. I know Brady Bauer runs a nice operation there outside of Gatesville. He's got a small high fence hunting ranch there and has a bunch of good quality animals on there, and he runs his hunts out of there. And I know his family owns the property, so he's the landowner and he's running the hunts. We have another ranch that we work really closely with in Gatesville, that a lot of you guys would know the people if I mention their name, but we started using them to help with a little bit of our overflow. They own the property, they run the hunts. We'll go out there and be with our clients during the hunt, but they're very particular about them calling the shots on what animal gets shot and this, that, and the other. And so that's another case of a landowner running the hunt. But I can tell you that family in particular, they don't run hunts to make a living. And there's a lot of landowners that have hunting properties that obviously do not run hunts to earn their living. That's not how they're buying these ranches. Believe me, if it was that easy, Blackwater would own a lot of property. It's just looking into it, the amount of money we spend with landowners every year on animals, that we purchase because our clients harvest. If you're looking at being able to afford a ranch, from that standpoint, there are properties that we can afford to go purchase. But once you do that, you cannot offer your service to as many people as we currently do. And that's something to keep in mind, is that you may want to only hunt with a landowner, because I get it, landowner can give you certain deals that other people can't, and landowner, you might think knows his property better than anybody, or his animals better than anybody, and you're dealing with the man, and I understand that, but when push comes to shove, a landowner can offer you whatever you want on that property, but then when it comes to you deciding to hunt something else, then you're going to have to go find yourself another landowner or whatever it is. And there are situations where some of the properties we hunt on, the landowner in particular would have no idea where the stands are, or what species he has, or what species are coming, in and out, or and stuff like that. You know what I mean? There's a lot of times that the landowner's receiving a check as hunting being another form or source of income for their, conglomeration of a company or that ranch in particular. And that landowner may have stepped foot on that property 2 times a year, may have never seen the property before, may just be in a company that owns the property. And so that's something to keep in mind when it comes to that as well. That's kind of my take on landowners. There's certain situations where you can get in good with a really good guy that, you're hunting his place, and he may be retired, or may have had the property passed down to him, and therefore that's what he's doing, is he's running hunts on the place and earning himself a decent living, to be out there doing that. And in that case, if that's your thought of going on a guided hunt, is that you only want to deal with the landowner, then I would suggest, looking for stuff like that. When it comes to outfitters, myself, Blackwater Guide Service is an outfitter. And then, this kind of ties in with guides. Also, we have guides that work for, or with Blackwater. When it comes to an outfitter, what you're doing is you're going to go out and acquire property to be able to take clients hunting on. And so a lot of times you will see that outfitters may grow larger or have more to offer in different locations per se than maybe an individual landowner would have to offer. And so as an outfitter, we're going out and finding properties that fit the bill of what our clients look for. And so you might have, the way we try to do it is we try to find properties that our motto is build your own hunt. We're looking for or helping clients who, they may be on a wide range. They might like to dove hunt. They might also like to hunt an eland or axis or whitetail, or some of our clients may only want to hunt free range, while other clients of ours may be interested in doing high fence hunts. And so you can't just have one place in particular to do that. And we have clients that have budgets that are on the lower end, and we have clients that have budgets that they don't care what it costs. They just want to get this, And so that's kind of what outfitters do, is they go out and they find these different locations that they can work with, and they provide their service or take their service to that ranch. Now, when dealing with an outfitter, there are a couple things to know. There's different contracts on each piece of property. Some of our properties are outright lease properties, where we go in as an outfitter and we lease the entire ranch, and we have a harvest quota on that ranch. And it's just like if you went and got yourself a deer lease, and the deer lease had 6 spots, and you were one of the 6 spots. Well, in our case, we would go in and we would lease the whole ranch, and we would have all 6 spots, I guess, and then we would take our clients hunting in that manner to take off the harvest quota of that property. We also have per basis contracts with certain landowners, where we go in and every axis we take costs us a certain amount of money. Just like if you go to Walmart, there's a wholesale retail side of that industry, and it's the same when it comes to outfitting, is that you have a wholesale retail type deal where we try to work in conjunction with different ranches to where we give them the ease or comfort of knowing that we're going to be able to supply enough business to make it worthwhile to try to build an exclusive relationship with them. And in that case, they give us a price for the animals on the ranch, and we have a daily fee that we charge for lodging, meals, and guide fee, which at the same time, we're paying for meals out of that. So we have a grocery fee bill, and we have a lot of times a lodging fee. So we're charging for lodging, meals, and guide. But at the same time, as an outfitter, I'm paying the guide, I'm paying for the groceries for the meals, and I'm paying the landowner to lodge at the lodge. And then we have, a small upcharge on the actual animal, which is, where we make profit in the whole situation. So you're making a little profit off of the daily rates, and you're making a little profit off of the actual animal harvest. And then, obviously there are tips, which is a whole different scenario that or discussion podcast that may come up at a later date. I touched on that a little bit on a podcast I did with Adventure One a couple weeks or a month ago or something like that. Anyways, that's how it works from an outfitter standpoint. We're still taking our guys that are wearing, Blackwater apparel or whatever it is, repping the brand in that manner. They work with Blackwater, they get paid by Blackwater, and they're guiding, or I'm actually out there guiding. And so that's how it works from an outfitter standpoint. As a guide's standpoint, a guide usually works for an outfitter or works for a ranch or landowner. And so that's how guides work. Guides go in to a company, and either the hunters book at a ranch while the guide's working for the ranch particularly, and then the guide will run the hunt that the ranch books, or a guide works for an outfitter where the outfitter schedules the guides to go to their different properties and work the hunts that the outfitter is booking. Guides are usually paid on a daily rate basis, and then they make their tips after that. I've seen guides' wages go from, I heard of an outfitter the other day that doesn't even pay his guides, and they work for tips only, all the way up to guys that are making, $250 a day, that, they're getting that and splitting tips or keeping their tips, however that works. You know what I mean? We have a certain way we do it in Blackwater. Works out for everybody. It's always been a good system. But I know that there's more than one way to skin a cat when it comes to that. However, the point being is that guides are either working, usually they're either working for a ranch in particular or an outfitter in particular. And there are also some guides that do contract work where they just come out and say, hey, I'm a guide, and if anybody's looking for a guide, I'm looking for work. They may work with this guide or this outfitter who primarily runs fall hunts. He's got a whitetail operation. They may work with him all fall, and then when the fall shuts down, they may switch over and start working with a guy that does a lot of spring exotic hunts or summer axis hunts or whatever it is. So you have that option too. There are guides who are contract guides who are just stay to themselves, and they work for different people throughout the year, and there's nothing wrong with that either. They're making daily wages, and they are getting tips on top of that. And there's a lot of hardworking guides out there that try to do that to make sure that they're working a full-time job as a guide, and like I said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that either. That is a guide. So you have landowners who own the property. Some of them actually guide hunts, some of them don't guide hunts. You have outfitters who don't own the property but lease some property or have contracts on properties, and they go in and run the hunts for the landowner. And then you have guides who are either working for the landowner or working for the outfitter to accomplish, whatever the client's goal is for that particular hunt. And then you have brokers, and there's good and bad brokerage systems, because there's brokerage systems that are 100% just good as gold. The guys go experience the outfitters that they're talking with or promoting. They're reputable. They have vetted these outfitters, and they have it built in with the outfitter that the price they are receiving for doing the legwork of marketing and booking these hunts are not adding to the price that a guy would normally go out and purchase that hunt directly from the landowner or the guide or the outfitter from, or for, I should say. So, for instance, if a broker is charging, whatever, if an outfitter or a landowner is charging $3,000 for a hunt, most of your good brokers will go in, and they only take a select few people. Like I said, they're vetting these people and they're making sure that it is a quality place to send people to, whether that's personal experience or just doing lots of reviews over and over again, and figuring out that this is a very reputable outfitter or landowner to send clients to. And they're taking that $3,000 and they're negotiating with the landowner or the outfitter to take whatever it is, $100, $200, $300, $500 from that landowner or outfitter, in order to book this hunt with these clients and do the legwork it takes to get them in on the property. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of really good ones out there that do that. And then you have other brokers who are fly by night and just build a website, and they take in anybody and everybody that sells a hunt, and they go to them and they tell them, we don't want any of your money. Basically, we just want to help promote your hunts. And for doing that, if your price is $2,000, we're going to change your price on our website to $2,500, and we're going to take the $500 and give you the $2,000. And they upcharge you as a client for finding you, which I do kind of have a problem with that, because I get it that the work costs money, but at the same time, I don't think that the upcharge should be passed to the consumer when you're doing a service for the landowner or the outfitter. And I know that's going to step on some people's toes, but you're doing work to try to book a ranch, and therefore whatever the ranch is doing, that if they're willing to work for you, that needs to, or work with you, that needs to be built into their pricing, and not additional rates passed on to the customer just because you were able to locate them. So that's kind of my feelings on that. I think that there are some really good brokers out there, and I don't have an issue with that side of hunt brokering. I have an issue with the side of put as many people as you can in, or many options as you can in here. Don't vet anybody and just try to send people anywhere you can to make $1, and upcharging the customer for using your service, and instead of charging the landowner or outfitter for helping their service. So that's kind of my deal on that. You've got the brokers that help find and place people, and that can be good or bad. You've got outfitters who do leases or contracts on properties for a put and take basis. And then you have guides who work for outfitters or landowners, and you have landowners who actually own the property. And there can be good and bad in every single one of those, right? I'm not saying, I don't want it to come across that landowners are always good, guides are always good, outfitters are always good, and brokers can sometimes be good and sometimes be bad. That's not the case at all. I think if you do a little bit of research, in the slightest bit, you'll find that there are good and bad landowners, there are good and bad guides, there are good and bad outfitters, and there are good and bad brokers. And so that's something to definitely keep in mind when discussing this or looking at hunts. I think what's really important is that if you're a person that feels the need to judge somebody or make a judgment prior to booking or doing business with anybody, I think that it's just real important that we all look at it as judging the individual and not the genre of the industry that they've put themselves into. Because I've met some guides that I would never in a million years hire to work for Blackwater, and I've met some guys that I would love to come be a part for Blackwater, of Blackwater. And so it's the same thing with, there's landowners I would never work with and landowners I would love to work with. And it just, it goes both ways. And I think you have to be very careful about judging a genre of the industry, and not, and not taking a hard look at the actual individual themselves, because in the long run, you're doing business with an actual individual. You're whoever your last point of contact is who you're actually doing that's who you're going to be on the hunt with. And so that's a very important thing to keep in mind, is that person, the end result, is what the first expectation was pitched to you as. And yes, a landowner may be able to pitch, it may be a shorter line for the landowner to pitch you what the hunt will be, and him be able to make that possible because you're dealing with the one person. But it doesn't mean that if you put 2 or 3 steps in there that it can't be done right also, because that happens every single day in your day-to-day life or occurrences, whether you're getting on Airbnb and renting a house, or VRBO and renting a house, or whether you're going, like we talked earlier, and whether you're going to Walmart and buying a product. Somebody created that product, somebody distributes the product, somebody markets the product to tell you what to think about the product. Somebody puts the product on the shelf, and when you go to buy that product, the last person you deal with is whoever's there checking you out at the store. And that person, if they're a complete and total jerk, can make you put the product down and walk out of the store, whether it was a good experience up to that point or not. And same thing, the person who created that product can post something on Facebook that you completely and totally disagree with, and that can make you never want to go and buy that product. But you can have a good, seamless, organized transition from first learning about something to the last result of putting it in your car and taking it home, and you feel comfortable with the entire purchase of the product. So something to keep in mind is that every step that you take, you're dealing with an individual, and that individual has to be vetted on each level. And so that's my opinion on the difference between guides, outfitters, landowners, and brokers, is that in the long run, they are all individual people. And so it doesn't really matter what their title is. It matters how they operate and conduct their business to be truthful, trustworthy, and honest with you, to provide you with the same service at the end of the hunt that you expected to get at the beginning of your hunt. And if you can find those guys, do business with them, because they're all across the spectrum. There's no difference in going and hunting with a great landowner and going and booking a hunt with a great broker, because those people know each other and they stay close to each other and they work with each other through the process. And so that's my advice, is just to make sure that no matter if you're going directly to a landowner or you're going to the opposite end of the spectrum and working with a broker, or you're going in between to an outfitter, that you just make sure that person has been known to provide the same results at the end of the hunt as what it says you're expected to receive at the beginning of the hunt. That's kind of my take on all that. I'm sure there's a lot of questions, comments, and concerns over that, and I would love to visit with you about those in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this topic. I'm sure I'm leaving some stuff out. If there's anything that you would like to dive further into this subject on, let me know. Or if you have a topic that you would like to discuss next time, shoot that in the comments below, also on our YouTube channel here, and I will make it I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. I will do my best to speak on that subject on our next podcast. Anyways, so I'll quit rambling. This has been episode 16 of the Blackwater Podcast. We sure appreciate you guys joining and following along. Please like, share, and follow us on here. Subscribe, I guess, would be the word for YouTube. Please subscribe, like, and share this podcast, and let's keep this thing growing. I think we're almost at 1,500 subs now, and I would really like to see this make a big jump. So thanks again, and we will talk to you soon.